They thought humans were weak. They declared war, but they had no idea how unstoppable we truly are. The galaxy had always watched humans from a distance, thinking they were nothing more than a noisy young species, still tied to their fragile blue world. But everything changed the day the Cadran Dominion declared war on Earth, because the Dominion thought it would be an easy conquest, a short war that would end with another flag planted on another broken planet, and they believed humans would collapse in fear as many species had done before them. But they were wrong, because the humans they thought of as reckless dreamers were about to show the galaxy what survival really meant. On Earth, the news spread across every city and every home. People were shocked to hear that an alien empire had declared war. The skies were still blue, the oceans still calm, but behind the scenes preparations began. President Laura Bennett sat in the underground war room, listening to her generals explain the size of the enemy fleet, and she understood the scale of what was coming. She was not a woman who believed in surrender, and her words were steady when she told them, "We will not kneel, no matter the cost." General Marcus Hall looked across the room at the faces of soldiers, scientists, and leaders. They were afraid but also determined. They had no choice. It was fight or die. Captain Daniel Brooks stood on the bridge of the Horizon, the newest ship in the human fleet. Its hull barely finished and its weapons still untested. The crew was young but loyal. They looked to him for courage, and he gave them none of the doubts in his heart. He told them, "This is our world. Our families are behind us, and we will not let anyone take them away." The crew cheered even as fear tightened in their chests, because they knew the enemy coming toward them was unlike anything they had ever faced. The Cadran were old, they were powerful, and they had crushed hundreds of worlds. The first sign of the war came when sensors at the edge of the solar system picked up movement. It was not one fleet, it was three. Each larger than all of Earth's navy combined. Panic swept across Earth. But the Horizon and a handful of ships moved to intercept. Their mission was not to win, but to buy time. Commander Olivia Carter was in charge of tactical planning. She was brilliant, sharp-eyed, and calm even under fire, and she sat beside Brooks studying the enemy formations. She saw patterns, weaknesses that no machine could predict, and she whispered, "We can bleed them. We just have to be willing to pay the price." The Cadran commander, watching from his throne-like chair on the enemy flagship, was confident. He laughed at the sight of the small human fleet compared to his massive armada. To him, it was no battle at all. It was execution. His voice echoed across the bridge when he ordered, "Destroy them." But when his fleet advanced, the humans did not retreat. Instead, they split apart, diving into asteroid fields using broken satellites and debris as cover. One squadron of human fighters lured enemy cruisers into a mined corridor, exploding the rocks into shrapnel that shredded shields. Captain Brooks ordered the Horizon to plunge straight through enemy fire, weaving with reckless speed that no Cadran captain dared to attempt. When the first Cadran ship exploded under human fire, the alien commander leaned forward in disbelief. Humans should not have been able to do that. Their weapons were weak, their ships crude, yet somehow they had pierced his formation. And worse, they were adapting with every passing minute. Olivia Carter launched a risky maneuver, forcing 3 human ships to ram damaged enemy vessels at close range. The shockwave tore through the Cadran line. Even as the humans lost precious ships, their sacrifice created chaos, and the Dominion fleet, for the first time in centuries, staggered back in confusion. Earth watched the battle unfold through shaky transmissions. Billions of people held their breath as the reports came in. Humanity had lost ships. Yes, but they had inflicted damage against an empire everyone thought untouchable. The streets filled with people holding hands, with people shouting that they would fight to the end. For the first time, humans did not feel helpless. They felt powerful. The Cadran High Council was furious. Supreme Commander Veyrak slammed his clawed hand on the war table, declaring, "These humans will be broken. Bring more fleets, burn their world." But the advisors who sat around him shifted uneasily because they had never seen such resistance from a new species before. They whispered among themselves, "What if this war was not so simple? What if these humans were different?" Veyrak dismissed their concerns with rage because he had built his entire career on fear and dominance, and he would not let a young primitive world ruin his empire's pride. In the weeks that followed, the war spread across nearby systems. The Cadran sent more ships, But each time the humans learned and adapted. Dr. Ethan Price, working in a secret base on the moon, studied, captured alien technology. He built crude but powerful weapons combining human engineering with alien energy. He showed President Bennett the prototypes, railguns that could fire plasma-enhanced rounds, shields that could withstand direct hits for precious seconds, and drives that allowed ships to dart faster than before. The president asked him how long until they are ready. He answered, not long, because the war gives us no choice. The Horizon was refitted with these weapons and sent out again. Brooks and his crew felt both awe and fear when they tested them. The weapons worked, but they pushed their ship to the edge of destruction. Still, they had no choice. Each mission felt like a gamble. With death, Olivia Carter grew sharper with every battle, her strategies unpredictable, her traps deadly. She whispered to Brooks once, "They think we will fight like them, but we never will. We fight like humans, and that is why they will lose." Across the galaxy, whispers began to spread. Alien traders, smugglers, and refugees spoke of the humans who stood against the Dominion and won skirmishes against impossible odds. Some species who had lived under Cadran fear for generations began to hope. They sent secret messages to Earth offering intelligence and supplies. Small rebellions flared in corners of the Empire, sparks that would one day become flames, all because the Dominion chose the wrong enemy to fight. Captain Brooks carried the weight of every lost life, every ship that did not return. He stood alone on the observation deck of the Horizon, looking out at the stars, sometimes wondering if survival was even possible. But each time he saw the faces of his crew, the determination in their eyes, he knew they could not stop, because if they stopped, Earth would burn. He remembered his family back home, his mother who worked in a hospital, his brother who still lived in a small town. Those faces gave him strength. When he stepped back onto the bridge, his voice was steady and strong, and his crew followed him without hesitation. The Dominion planned a massive strike at Vega Prime. Believing they could finally crush the humans in one decisive battle, they sent their largest fleet, but the humans had learned to turn every weakness into a weapon. General Marcus Hall gathered every ship Earth had built, every fighter, every freighter armed with stolen weapons, every volunteer pilot who was willing to fight. He stood before them and said, "We are outnumbered, but we are not outmatched. Today we show the galaxy that humanity does not bow at Vega Prime." The battle lit the sky like a storm. The Cadran unleashed waves of fire that tore through human ships, but Brooks led the Horizon straight into the heart of the enemy formation. Carter guided the fleet with precision, striking weak points that no machine could calculate. Dr. Price's weapons roared to life, cutting through enemy armor that had never been breached before. The Cadran fought back with fury, but for every human ship destroyed, another seemed to rise in its place, driven by pure determination. When Brooks rammed his ship's broadside into an enemy cruiser, firing point blank until it split apart, the entire human fleet surged forward, shouting through open comms, "No retreat, not today." The galaxy watched in shock as the impossible happened. The Dominion flagship was crippled and captured intact. Human soldiers stormed its decks, raising the flag of Earth for all to see. The news spread faster than light across every system. Humans had stood against the greatest empire and bloodied its nose. The whispers turned to shouts, and the Cadran, for the first time in centuries, felt the cold sting of fear. When the battle ended, the Horizon limped away, scarred and broken but alive. Brooks stood on the bridge, his uniform torn, his face covered in soot, and he smiled for the first time in weeks, because they had survived and because survival meant hope. Across Earth, people cheered. Across alien worlds, enslaved people dared to dream of freedom, and across the Dominion halls of power, leaders whispered to one another in fear, asking the question none of them wanted to answer: what if we cannot win this war? And so the war that was supposed to end quickly had only just begun. The humans had shown that they could not be broken, and that every strike against them only made them stronger. And as Captain Brooks looked out once more at the stars, he whispered to himself, "They declared war on us, and now they will regret it for the rest of history." The wreckage from the battle at Vega Prime still drifted across the stars, glowing faintly in the endless dark. When the surviving human fleet limped back toward Earth, their ships scarred, but their spirits unbroken. Captain Daniel Brooks stood on the Horizon's bridge. His uniform scorched his body, exhausted, but his voice calm when he told his crew, "You did what no one thought possible. You stood against an empire, and you won." The words carried through every deck and every soldier engineer, and medic lifted their heads higher than before, because victory, no matter how small, was still victory. Back on Earth, people filled the streets, waving flags, embracing strangers. The name Vega Prime was written on every screen. It was no longer just a battle, it was a symbol that humanity could resist and maybe even win. President Laura Bennett watched from her secure command bunker, and she allowed herself the smallest smile. She knew the war was far from over, and she knew the Dominion would strike back harder than before. But for the first time since the war began, she believed that survival was not only possible, but likely, in the cold halls of the Cadran Dominion. The news hit like a thunderstorm. Supreme Commander Veyrak screamed at his generals, demanding answers, demanding to know how an empire that ruled thousands of worlds had been humiliated by a single young species. His generals bent their heads in silence, none daring to answer. One finally spoke and whispered that perhaps the humans were different, perhaps their unpredictability made them dangerous. Veyrak silenced him with rage, declaring humans are insects and insects are crushed. But even as he shouted, he felt doubt gnaw at the back of his mind. Dr. Ethan Price worked day and night in his secret lunar laboratory, his hair unkempt, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep, but his mind alive with ideas. He studied the captured Dominion technology, the massive engines, the exotic weapons, the strange crystalline cores that powered their warships. He thought of ways to twist them into new weapons for Earth's defense. His assistants asked him why he pushed himself so hard, and he answered, "Because if I stop for even a moment, my children will die." And that was reason enough for him to keep going. Meanwhile, Commander Olivia Carter returned to Earth briefly to train new officers. Her reputation had spread. She was the one who saw patterns where others saw chaos, the one who led traps that destroyed entire enemy squadrons. She walked into the academy filled with young cadets, eager and terrified. They looked at her as if she were already a legend, and she told them simple words. "The Dominion fights with strength. We fight with our minds. Never forget that, because in war it is not the strongest who wins, but the one who refuses to break." But while Earth prepared for what came next, the Dominion prepared too, and their preparations were darker. Veyrak gathered fleets not just from his own core systems, but from conquered worlds, entire armadas summoned to crush humanity. His plan was to unleash such overwhelming force that resistance would be impossible. He ordered biological weapons. He ordered shock troops, genetically enhanced warriors bred only for battle. His words to his council were clear. "This war will end with Earth's ashes, and I will scatter their bones across the stars." The humans, however, did not wait to be attacked. They struck first. Captain Brooks and the Horizon were sent with a small fleet into the outer systems to raid Dominion supply lines. They were not strong enough to hold territory, but they could disrupt. They could weaken every fuel convoy, destroyed every shipyard, sabotaged. Gave Earth more time. Brooks led his crew through raids that seemed suicidal, dodging massive enemy patrols, striking fast and vanishing before reinforcements arrived. The Dominion commanders began to call him the Ghost of Sol, because no matter how many traps they set, he slipped away. One night, while drifting through an asteroid field hiding from patrols, Brooks walked the silent corridors of the Horizon. He paused by the crew quarters and heard laughter, faint and tired, but real. The crew joked about home, about food. They missed about the oceans, of Earth. And he realized something important. The Dominion fought with fear. Their soldiers obeyed because they were afraid of punishment. But humans fought with love, with loyalty, with the memory of what they were protecting, and that made them unstoppable. He carried that thought with him the next day, when the Horizon slipped past enemy pickets and blew apart another convoy. Word of human raids spread quickly. Rebellions across the Dominion grew louder on distant worlds. Slaves picked up tools and turned them into weapons, whispering the name of humanity as they struck their masters. Small uprisings were crushed brutally, but each left scars, and each forced the Dominion to stretch its forces thinner. Olivia Carter coordinated with some of these rebellions, sending encrypted transmissions advising them when to strike. She did not promise them victory, But she promised them that humanity was fighting beside them, and that gave them hope. Dr. Price finally unveiled his newest creation, weapon. He called the storm cannon. It was a fusion of human metal and alien crystal, a weapon that could release a pulse strong enough to disable entire enemy fleets for a brief moment, long enough for humans to strike. He presented it to General Hall and President Bennett, and though they feared the risks, they knew they had no choice. Humanity was at war for survival, and survival demanded risks. The storm cannon was mounted secretly on Earth's largest orbital station, a hidden blade waiting for the right time. When the Dominion returned in force, they came not with one fleet, but with 5. They poured into human space like a tidal wave, burning colonies on the edge of Sol, enslaving survivors, sending transmissions of terror meant to break human will. But instead, the transmissions had the opposite effect. Every burned colony, every fallen outpost only hardened Earth's resolve. The people no longer cried in despair. They cried in fury, demanding justice, demanding vengeance. Captain Brooks stood on the bridge of the horizon as he received news of a destroyed mining colony. He clenched his fists and swore, "They will pay." The great battle came near Titan. The Dominion fleets surrounded the moon, intending to use it as a base to stage their assault on Earth. Humanity gathered every ship they could spare. General Hall gave the order to engage, and the void filled with fire once again. The horizon charged straight into enemy lines, dodging beams of plasma, striking with railguns. Olivia, Carter directed fleets into positions that made the Dominion slam into their own crossfire. Dr. Price's storm cannon unleashed its first pulse, freezing hundreds of Dominion ships in mid-battle. Humanity struck them down before they could recover. The Dominion were not so easily defeated. They unleashed their shock troops, boarding ships by the dozens, creatures bred only to kill tall armored beasts with burning eyes. They stormed human ships, tearing through Marines with savage fury. The horizon shook as boarding pods slammed into its hull. Captain Brooks led his men personally down the corridors, blaster in hand, fighting side by side with his crew. The battle turned brutal and close, each step a struggle. Each breath a gamble, he shouted. Orders above the chaos: hold the line for Earth. The fighting raged for hours. Ships exploded above Titan, leaving trails of fire across the dark sky. Human soldiers fought in blood-soaked corridors, refusing to give a single inch. Olivia Carter, from her command chair, saw the chaos and realized the key was not to outfight the Dominion, but to outthink them. She ordered a sudden retreat of her flanking ships, making the enemy chase them into a minefield hidden in Titan's rings. When the mines detonated, half the Dominion fleet was shredded in one blazing instant. The tide began to turn. When the dust cleared, humanity had not only survived, they had won again. Titan remained in human hands, though scarred and burned. The Dominion retreated, furious and humiliated, and across the galaxy the whispers grew louder. The humans are winning. The humans cannot be stopped. The humans fight like no one else. Captain Brooks stood once more on his bridge, exhausted, wounded, but alive. He whispered. To himself, they thought we would fall, but we rise every time. On Cadron Prime. Supreme Commander Veyrak sat in silence, watching the reports. His empire trembled. Rebellions rising, fleets destroyed, soldiers dying in battles they should have easily won. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. True fear, because he realized this war might not end the way he had planned. Humanity had become the nightmare of the Dominion, a fire that no amount of blood could extinguish. And as he stared into the burning holograms, he whispered words he had never said before. What have we done? The battle over Titan still burned in memory across the galaxy, as fleets carried the scars of that nightmarish clash. Yet the humans did not rest. They pushed forward, with the same stubborn will that had shocked the alien empires for so long. The commanders of Earth knew the aliens were regrouping and trying to rebuild their shattered fleets. But the humans had no intention of waiting for that to happen. Colonel Harris stood aboard the flagship Resolute, staring out across the void, his crew working with calm precision despite the chaos of the war. He gave orders in a steady voice, and his officers followed without hesitation. They all understood what was at stake. The enemy had declared war and thought humans would fall quickly, but instead, the war had dragged the Council into a nightmare of endless defeats. Harris knew fear was spreading through the alien ranks. He had intercepted transmissions of their leaders, whispering about human persistence. Their own soldiers were starting to doubt their cause, and some worlds were even questioning if the Council could protect them. Still, Harris also knew desperation could make the aliens even more dangerous. They were already experimenting with darker strategies. One report spoke of biological weapons being tested in secret, another of a massive new ship design unlike anything seen before. Meanwhile, in Washington, President Miller met with generals and advisors in a hidden chamber deep beneath the city. The room was quiet, except for the low hum of machines tracking every battle. Every convoy, every alien fleet movement maps glowed across the walls, red and blue symbols shifting with every new report. Miller listened as General Ortiz explained the situation. "Our fleets are holding," he said, "but they are stretched thin. Every victory costs us, and the aliens are learning we cannot underestimate them." The president leaned forward, his face shadowed by the dim lights. "Then we must make them fear even more," he said. "Humans survive not because we are stronger, but because we refuse to give up. Let them see that again." Across the galaxy, on the alien homeworld of Draxar, Council leader Varric convened an emergency session. The great chamber that once echoed with confidence was filled with unrest. His fellow leaders shouted blame at one another, demanding answers. Some said the war was a mistake, others insisted retreat would mean humiliation, still others demanded escalation. One elder leaned close to Varric and hissed, "We should never have declared war on humans. They are not like other species. They fight as if death means nothing." Varric silenced the chamber with a raised hand, his eyes heavy with regret, but also with fury. "We cannot back down," he said. "If we surrender, to humans every world will laugh at us, our empire will crumble." No, he paused and then declared, "We will build the Leviathan." Whispers spread through the chamber. The Leviathan was more than a ship. It was a legend, an unfinished weapon from the earliest days of the Empire. It had been locked away because its power was too unstable, too destructive. But now the Council was desperate, and desperation was enough to break their own rules. If the Leviathan was completed, it could burn entire fleets in one strike. Varric hoped that with such power they could finally crush the humans. Back on the Resolute, Harris received intelligence about the project. The data was incomplete, but it was clear enough the aliens were preparing something massive. He gathered his officers and spoke plainly. "We cannot let them finish whatever this Leviathan is. If we wait, we die. We have to strike first." His crew agreed, but they all knew what he was proposing was almost impossible. The Leviathan was hidden deep, within enemy territory, protected by layers of fleets and defenses. To reach it would mean flying into the very heart of the Empire, as humans prepared their daring plan. The war also played out on countless smaller worlds. Ordinary soldiers fought. In trenches across barren planets, pilots clashed in the skies of frozen moons. Engineers worked night and day to repair ships barely holding together. Every human contributed in some way. And slowly they began to notice a change. Once hostile alien populations started questioning their loyalty. Some whispered admiration for humans who never stopped fighting. Some even defected quietly, offering information, supplies, or shelter to human forces. The unity of the Alien Council was beginning to crack, and humans knew every fracture brought them closer to survival. On one such world, a young Marine named Alex Carter led his squad through the ruins of a city, bombed into silence. The enemy had abandoned it, but strange signals suggested something was hidden underground. Carter was cautious, moving carefully through the rubble, his squad covering every angle as they descended into the ruins. What they found shocked them. Crates of supplies bearing Alien Council markings hidden beneath collapsed structures. Carter reported the find, and intelligence officers soon confirmed it. These supplies were meant for secret units supporting the Leviathan project. The evidence was clear. The Empire was pouring everything into this one weapon. Harris read the report and felt the chill of inevitability. "We have no choice," he muttered. "We must take the fight to them before the Leviathan awakens." The mission was prepared with utmost secrecy. Only a handful of commanders knew the full plan. The Resolute and a small strike fleet would attempt the impossible. They would penetrate enemy lines and destroy the Leviathan before it was unleashed. As Harris stood before his crew, he told them the truth. "This may be the mission that ends us all. But if we succeed, it could end the war. They listened not with fear but with resolve because they all understood the cost of surrender. They all remembered Earth's scars and the friends they had already lost as the strike fleet jumped into hyperspace. Whispers of their mission reached the alien council. Varric was warned of human movement, and his advisors urged caution, but pride burned too hot. He laughed bitterly. Let them come. He said the Leviathan will be their grave. He ordered defenses tightened and fleets mobilized, preparing for the inevitable clash. The journey to the Leviathan's world was brutal. Human ships were hunted every step of the way. Ambushes tore through their escorts. Mines detonated in the dark void. Sabotage slowed their systems, but still they pressed on. Harris never allowed despair to touch his words. He encouraged his crew, reminding them that every mile forward brought them closer to victory one night. As the stars shifted outside his cabin window, he sat alone thinking of home, of the families waiting, of the young soldiers like Carter, who gave everything without hesitation. He clenched his fists and whispered, "We cannot fail." Finally, the fleet arrived. The Leviathan was there, waiting, a monstrous silhouette against the planet below, larger than any ship ever built. Its hull bristled with weapons, its core glowing faintly with unstable power. Even the most seasoned officers felt dread at the sight. Harris stared at it and said quietly, "So this is what they built. To kill us," he gave the order. All ships engaged. The battle that followed shook the void. The Leviathan fired beams that tore through human cruisers in a single strike. Its defenses absorbed missile barrages as if they were nothing. Still, the humans fought relentlessly, darting between its massive cannons, striking at weak points, carving scars into its armor. But for every wound inflicted, another ship was lost. Inside the Leviathan, alien crews fought desperately to control its unstable systems. The power that gave it strength also threatened to tear it apart. Engineers shouted over alarms as reactors flared dangerously. The human assault only worsened the chaos inside, and Varric himself watched from the command deck, his pride turning slowly into dread as he realized the Leviathan was not invincible. On the Resolute, Harris coordinated every move, his voice steady, even as the ship shook from impacts. At last, his officers reported a weakness the Leviathan's core was exposed for. Brief moments during its firing cycle, Harris seized the chance. All ships concentrate on the core, he ordered. Pilots dove into suicidal runs, blasting the exposed section wave after wave, until at last, the Leviathan trembled, its glow becoming unstable. Alarms screamed across its decks as the great weapon began to tear itself apart. Varric shouted to his crew to stabilize it, but it was too late. The humans had forced the beast to consume itself as the Leviathan exploded in a storm of light. Harris whispered into the silence, "They declared war on us, now they regret it." His crew erupted in exhausted cheers. Though many ships were gone and many lives lost, the impossible had been done. The Leviathan was destroyed across the galaxy. News spread like wildfire. And for the first time, hope swelled not only among humans but among the countless alien races who had feared the Council's power. The myth of human weakness was broken forever, but Harris knew this was not the end. The war was far from finished. He turned back to the stars and prepared for whatever would come next. The explosion of the Leviathan was seen across the system, a burning light that marked both the death of a weapon and the death of an illusion. The alien council had promised their people that the humans would finally be crushed with this weapon, yet instead it was the humans who had turned the greatest project of the Empire into a fiery tomb. The shockwaves were not only physical, but political. Entire worlds that once obeyed the council with fear now whispered doubts. Soldiers who had been told humans were weak now questioned why their fleets had been torn apart by those same humans. On Earth, news of the victory spread like wildfire. Families cheered in the streets, children carried flags, and for the first time since the war began, people felt that the nightmare could end. President Miller stood before the cameras, his voice calm yet filled with power. He said, "We did not ask for this war, but we will finish it. If they think humans will surrender, they have already forgotten who we are." The speech echoed across human colonies, filling hearts with both pride and determination. Yet behind the celebration, the leaders knew the truth. The war was not over, and the enemy would not forgive this humiliation. Colonel Harris and his battered fleet limped back toward safer space. The cost of the battle was heavy. Ships destroyed, crews lost, friends gone forever. The Resolute itself bore deep scars across its hull, but inside the crew worked with the same determination as always. Harris walked the corridors speaking with soldiers and engineers alike. Each one tired, each one changed, yet all still ready to fight. He thought often of Alex Carter, the young Marine whose discovery of the hidden supplies had exposed the Leviathan. Project report said Carter was now recovering after a brutal mission on the ground. Harris knew he would need soldiers like him again. Meanwhile, on Draxar Council leader Varric sat in silence, staring at the ruins of his own ambition. The chamber, once filled with applause, now echoed with accusation. Fellow leaders shouted betrayal, failure, incompetence. Some demanded his removal, others demanded his execution. Varric clenched his fists, his pride burning even as his empire fractured. He roared, "Above them all, silence, you fools. Do you not see what this means? The humans are more dangerous than we believed, but they are still mortal. They still bleed. If we strike with unity, they can be crushed." Yet even as he spoke, he saw doubt in their eyes. The seeds of rebellion had already been planted. Across the alien territories, resistance began small whispers in marketplaces, soldiers deserting their posts, colonies refusing to send tribute. Some spoke of allying with humans, though, quietly out. A fear of execution, others simply refused to continue feeding the Council's endless war. The empire that had once seemed unbreakable now trembled under its own arrogance, and the humans had become the spark that lit the fire back on Earth. In the hidden chambers, President Miller and his generals studied reports with grim focus. General Ortiz pointed to the maps. "Their supply lines are weakening. Their people are restless. If we push now, we can break them." Miller nodded, but his eyes were heavy with caution. Breaking an empire was not the same as winning a battle. He said, "If we push too far too fast, we could unite them again. We must strike carefully and show their people that this war only brings them ruin." The humans decided not only to fight, but to use words and truth as weapons, broadcasting messages across alien channels telling the truth of what had happened, showing images of destroyed cities and fallen soldiers, telling every world that it was the Council who had declared war, and it was the Council who had brought suffering. The strategy was simple yet powerful. It planted doubt everywhere. As the propaganda spread, Harris and his fleet were assigned to a new mission. Instead of attacking head-on, they were to liberate smaller worlds one by one, showing that humans were not conquerors but survivors. Harris led raids that freed mining colonies, took back prisoners, and destroyed secret weapon factories, each victory, small yet meaningful, each one weakening. The Empire further, Alex Carter, now promoted, fought alongside other Marines on these missions, earning respect for his courage. His squad trusted him to lead even in the worst conditions, and Carter proved himself again and again, even when the battles seemed hopeless. But as humans gained strength, Varric turned to darker methods. He ordered assassins to hunt human leaders. He sent shadow fleets to strike at supply convoys. He authorized weapons that even his own people feared. One such plan was uncovered when Harris intercepted a transmission about a weapon hidden on the frozen moon of Carol. A device designed to tear through space itself, collapsing fleets in an instant. Harris knew if it was unleashed, no fleet could survive. He gathered his officers and said, "We destroyed the Leviathan, but this could be worse. We cannot allow them to finish it." The mission to Carol was one of the most dangerous, yet the planet was surrounded by storms of ice and debris, making navigation nearly impossible. Alien fleets guarded it with fanatic loyalty, knowing its importance. Harris led the Resolute through the storm, every second a fight against destruction. Carter and his squad landed on the frozen surface, battling through blizzards and alien soldiers. Until they reached the underground base. Inside, they found not only the weapon, but alien scientists forced to build it against their will. Carter spoke with one of them, a trembling figure who admitted they had begged the Council to stop but were ignored. Carter reported the truth, and Harris made the choice. Instead of destroying the base, he freed the scientists and took the weapon schematics back to Earth, proof of the Empire's crimes. Once broadcast across the galaxy, the truth spread faster than any fleet could travel. Worlds erupted in anger against the Council. Rebellions grew louder. Soldiers refused to fight. Entire planets declared independence. Varric watched his empire crumble, yet still refused to surrender. He declared martial law, ordering executions of anyone who questioned him. He filled the skies of rebellious worlds with warships trying to hold power through fear. Yet every strike only pushed more worlds away. Every order made him look weaker, not stronger. And the humans only grew bolder. Harris launched raids deeper and deeper into enemy space, destroying shipyards, cutting supply lines, capturing leaders one by one. The humans fought not only with strength, but with cunning, and it worked. Still, the war was far from one. Varric, in his desperation, summoned his most loyal commanders and revealed his final plan. If the Empire was to fall, he would take the humans with him. He ordered the gathering of every fleet, every weapon, every ship, into one final armada. He would strike directly at Earth itself if he could burn the home of humanity. Then victory would be meaningless. Harris and the human command soon intercepted whispers of the plan. The council was coming for Earth itself. Miller gathered his generals and spoke firmly. "We have shown them what it means to fight us. But if they come here, we must show them what it means to lose everything. We must make Earth the battle they can never forget." Harris returned to his fleet. Carter readied his squad, and across the galaxy, fleets turned their course toward the blue planet that had become both a symbol of hope and the target of vengeance. The war was now moving to its most dangerous chapter, one that would decide not only victory or defeat, but survival itself. The warning came faster than anyone expected. Alien transmissions intercepted by human intelligence spoke of a massive armada gathering from every corner of the Empire. It was a fleet larger than anything seen before, tens of thousands of ships, armed with every weapon in their arsenal, all moving toward one target. Earth itself. The news spread across human space like wildfire, and for the first time in the war, silence fell. Even in the busiest cities, people understood what it meant. If Earth fell, everything fell. President Miller stood before his generals in the underground command center, his face heavy but his voice firm. "We always knew they would come for our home. Now they are coming with everything they have, and we will meet them with everything we are." Colonel Harris returned to Earth with the Resolute, limping from endless battles but still standing, his crew exhausted, yet ready once more. He walked the halls of the ship, speaking with soldiers, engineers, and pilots. He reminded them of what they were fighting for: their families, their planet, their survival. He gathered his officers and said plainly, "This will be the battle that decides everything. The aliens think they can break us by coming here. But Earth is not just a planet, it is a fortress, it is our heart. We will not let it fall." Across the world, preparations began. Orbital defenses were activated. Giant cannons positioned on the moon were brought online. Stealth satellites armed with missiles were moved into position. The skies above Earth filled with human ships, repaired and reinforced with new designs forged from lessons of the war. Every pilot knew they might not return, but not one refused the call. Civilians too played their part, building shelters, preparing supplies, sending every ounce of support they could, and as the invasion neared, the world grew quiet, waiting for the storm. On Draxar, Council Leader Varric watched as his armada assembled. The pride in his chest was mixed with desperation. His empire was crumbling, rebellion spreading with every passing day. But if he could burn Earth to ash, if he could show the galaxy that humans were not untouchable, then perhaps his power could be restored. He stood on the command deck of his massive flagship, the Dominion, and declared to his officers, "Today we erase the human disease today. The galaxy remembers who rules it." But even as he spoke, some of his commanders exchanged uneasy glances. Many of them had seen what humans could do. Many doubted victory, yet fear kept them silent. When the armada entered human space, alarms echoed across every station. Harris received the first reports and called to his crew, "They are coming and we are ready. Remember, they started this war, they brought it to us, now we end it." The Resolute moved into position among the defense fleets, its scarred hull a reminder of every battle fought before it. Carter, now a captain of his own squad, stood on the surface near the fortified city of New Houston, where defenses had been layered, thick bunkers, anti-aircraft batteries, and shield generators waiting for the ground assault. He spoke to his squad, his voice steady. "They think Earth will be easy, but they don't know what it means to fight here. They don't know what it means to fight a death world." The alien armada emerged from hyperspace like a storm, black shapes blotting out the stars, thousands upon thousands of ships filling the void. The sheer size of it made even the most seasoned soldiers swallow their fear. Harris stared at the sight and muttered, So this is everything they have, then so be it. President Miller gave the order. Engage. The sky lit up with fire as the greatest battle in human history began. Missiles streaked across space lasers. Cut through darkness, fighters swarmed like angry bees, and the alien fleet answered with fury. Whole ships vanished in explosions. Shockwaves rippled through formations. Debris scattered across the void. Yet the humans held their lines, fighting with desperate precision. Every loss answered with another strike. On the moon, defense cannons unleashed beams that tore through alien cruisers. Human fighters darted between massive carriers, targeting weak points and slipping away before they could be caught. Harris directed his fleet with cold clarity, moving ships like pieces on a board, sacrificing where needed but always striking back harder. The Resolute led a daring charge into the center of the enemy formation, blasting holes through their ranks. Harris himself at the command refused to back down, even when the ship shuddered under impacts. Meanwhile, on Earth, the alien ground forces began their descent, dropships cutting through the atmosphere, fire raining down as they tried to land. Carter and his squad waited in the ruins of the old city, defenses around them alive with energy. As bunkers fired skyward, alien craft crashed in flames, yet many made it through. Troops spilled into the streets, massive alien walkers stomping through the rubble, but the humans were ready. Carter shouted to his squad, "Hold the line, they will regret stepping on our soil," and the battle for Earth's ground began. The streets became rivers of fire. Humans fought from building to building, ambushing. At every corner, snipers picking off commanders, explosives collapsing roads beneath enemy armor. Every inch of ground contested, every step paid for in blood back. In orbit, the fight reached new levels of fury. The alien flagship Dominion entered the battle, its weapons ripping through human lines. Harris locked eyes on it, knowing that as long as it stood, the Armada would not break. He gave the order, all ships concentrate on the Dominion. Human fleets turned their fire on the massive ship barrage. After barrage pounding its shields, but the Dominion was a fortress, its guns cutting swaths through human cruisers. Harris clenched his fists, refusing to yield. Then a message crackled through an unexpected channel. Alien voices speaking not with orders but with warning, a group of defectors from the Empire broadcasting coordinates, weak points in the Dominion structure. Harris seized the chance, directing his ships to strike those points. Missiles pierced deeper beams, lanced into vulnerable sections, and at last the Dominion shuddered under the weight of the human assault. Varric roared in fury, ordering his men to fight harder, but cracks were spreading not only in his ship, but in his fleet. Rumors of defeat spreading faster than commands could silence on the surface. Carter's squad fought through burning ruins, pushing against wave after wave. He saw civilians trapped, and without hesitation he ordered his men to protect them. Not just fight, his actions inspired others, soldiers rallying, civilians helping to build barricades together, aliens watching with shock at the unity of humans. Every push by the invaders met with a counter-push. Every scream answered with defiance. Carter's body was bruised, his rifle nearly empty, but his spirit unbroken. He shouted above the chaos, "This is our world, we will never bow." In orbit, the Dominion finally began to falter, explosions tearing across its decks, fire consuming its hull. Varric stood at the command deck, his pride collapsing as the truth finally struck: humans could not be broken. He could not erase Earth. His empire was dying, and his greatest armada was failing around him. In one final act of desperation, he ordered his ship to ram directly into the planet below to destroy. Even in defeat, Harris saw the move, and with every ounce of strength left in the fleet, he gave the order to stop it. Human ships swarmed the Dominion, blasting it apart piece by piece until finally, with a blinding explosion, the massive flagship was gone, its pieces burning up in Earth's sky. The Armada shattered with it, alien ships retreating in chaos, commanders refusing to fight any longer, soldiers surrendering in droves. The battle was ending. On the ground, Carter and his squad watched as alien forces broke, retreating in panic, the skies clearing as human fighters soared in victory. Cheers erupted across the world, people pouring into the streets. Despite the ruins, the war was not yet over, but Earth had been defended against the full might of the alien empire. Harris stood aboard the battered Resolute, watching the fires fade across space, his chest heavy with grief for those lost, but filled with pride for what was won. President Miller spoke once more, his words broadcast across every channel: "They came to destroy us, but they forgot who we are. They forgot that humans do not break today." We have shown the galaxy that Earth will never fall. And the galaxy listened. But even as celebrations began, whispers grew darker. Varric was not dead. Though his empire was broken, he had escaped in the chaos carried by a loyal few, and in the shadows he vowed revenge. He vowed that if his empire could not win, then he would find another way to make humanity suffer and far beyond. Both Earth and Draxar unknown eyes watched the war unfold, alien species that had remained hidden, now turning their gaze to humanity, some with fear, some with interest. The war for survival was not yet finished. It had only just reached its turning point. The sky over Earth was a mixture of smoke and fire. Yet amid the chaos, life-endured humans were everywhere, celebrating quietly, tending to the wounded, and beginning to rebuild what the alien war had nearly destroyed. President Miller walked along the streets of New Houston, his boots crunching over broken concrete, his eyes scanning the survivors. The city had been nearly leveled by alien bombardments, yet the people were alive, determined, refusing to bow or despair. He stopped to speak with a group of engineers working on rebuilding communications and said to them with quiet strength, "Where you lay every tower you rebuild is a statement that Earth will survive, that humanity will not be broken." They looked at him, some smiling through the grime on their faces, some nodding with tired determination. High above the planet, Colonel Harris and the Resolute drifted through orbit. Its hull battered yet intact, the fleet had suffered losses. Too many to count, but the victory was undeniable. Harris stood on the bridge, looking down at the cities below. Remembering every friend and crew member who had fallen, he clenched his jaw and whispered, "We survived, but at what cost?" He walked the corridors, speaking to engineers, pilots, soldiers, reminding them to hold fast and prepare for whatever came next. The war may have ended, but humanity's duty to protect Earth was never over. On Draxar, Supreme Commander Varric sat in silence aboard his hidden ship. A small remnant of the armada that had once threatened to crush Earth, the empire he had ruled, feared and commanded for decades, had collapsed before the humans, and yet in his mind, defeat did not mean surrender. He looked at the stars and muttered, "They have won today, but they have not seen the end of me." His advisors, terrified and loyal, tried to reason with him, to suggest retreat, rebuilding, or exile. Yet Varric's pride and vengeance burned too strongly. He planned in secret, sending messages to remaining warlords and loyalists across the galaxy, plotting, calculating, preparing for a strike that humanity did not yet imagine. Meanwhile, on the liberated worlds, humans had begun establishing alliances, providing aid, and stabilizing societies that had lived under fear for decades. Alien populations, initially hostile or indifferent to humans, began to see the difference their liberators had made. Soldiers defected, helping to rebuild infrastructure. Scientists provided data on alien technology, and even simple messages of peace and assistance spread hope across the systems. The humans had not only survived, but their courage and intelligence had inspired entire populations. These worlds whispered the truth. Humans did not attack blindly. They did not enslave. They protected. They fought with heart and mind. Alex Carter, now recognized as a hero of multiple campaigns, returned to Earth briefly to visit his family. He walked through a city, slowly returning to life, streets filled with civilians and soldiers alike. His parents embraced him tightly, tears streaming down their faces, proud yet fearful of the cost he had paid. He told them simply, "I came back and I will keep coming back until this is truly over." But even as he spoke, he knew the war had changed him. He thought of the friends lost, the cities destroyed, the weight of command and responsibility. Yet he also felt pride because humanity had survived, thrived, and proven itself. The Council of Alien Defectors began communicating openly with humans, sharing intelligence, technology, and strategies for dealing with the remnants of Varric's empire. These defectors, once loyal to tyranny, now worked openly to stabilize regions and prevent further war. Their knowledge of the empire's inner workings was invaluable, providing humanity with the advantage to anticipate Varric's moves. Even as he retreated and regrouped, Harris analyzed these reports and realized that while the Leviathan had been destroyed and the Armada scattered, Varric himself remained a threat, a shadow looming over every victory and every liberated system on Earth. President Miller called a meeting with top generals, engineers, and intelligence officers in a massive underground facility far beneath the ruins of Washington, D.C. The room was tense, the air thick with the weight of responsibility, yet alive with energy and determination. "We have survived their greatest strike," Miller said. But the fight is not over. They thought destroying Earth would end us. But they have learned the wrong lesson. The humans are unbreakable, and now it is time to prepare for what comes next. Every officer in the room understood. This was not the end, but a pause in a war that might last decades. Harris coordinated patrols across key systems, fortifying supply routes, setting up rapid response fleets, and using alien defectors as guides to prevent hidden attacks. A system previously loyal to the Empire, known as Ralton, became a test site for new fleet formations and defensive strategies here. Humans trained alongside defectors, teaching them how to survive under alien tactics, how to defend against overwhelming numbers, and how to anticipate attacks before they happened. The lessons learned here would ripple across every human colony, strengthening the bonds of alliance and ensuring that no strike could surprise humanity again. Meanwhile, Varric was not idle. He had retreated to the Outer Rim, gathering forces among systems still loyal or terrified of him. Whispers of his plans reached only the most reliable of scouts. His movements cautious, deliberate yet relentless, he built small warships, rebuilt battalions, and experimented with exotic technologies scavenged from lost battles. His advisors warned him of the humans' cunning, their networks of spies, and the defectors who now worked with them. Yet Varric laughed bitterly. Pride refusing to yield. Today they won, he thought. But tomorrow, the humans will bleed, and when they do, the galaxy will remember my name. His mind turned constantly over strategies, assassination attempts, sabotage operations, and even the possibility of creating a weapon to rival the Leviathan only he could control. Only he could wield on Earth. Civilians continued to rebuild, their resilience as important as the military victories. Children returned to schools, markets reopened, and communication lines re-established with distant colonies. Messages of peace, survival, and defiance spread quickly. These were the victories of everyday life, a testament to the endurance of humanity, as vital to the story of survival as battles and fleets. People worked, laughed, cried, and remembered the cost of war, yet refused to let it define them. The world healed slowly, scarred but alive, and the memory of alien destruction only strengthened the will to protect it. Alex Carter was assigned to train new recruits, young soldiers eager to prove themselves after hearing of the humans who had fought at Vega Prime. Titan, and during the final Armada assault he taught them courage, strategy, and above all how to fight not just with weapons but with heart. He reminded them, the humans never give up, the humans never surrender, and the humans always protect their own. The recruits listened, inspired, and grew stronger under his guidance, and as Carter watched them, he realized that humanity's greatest weapon was not its fleets, nor its weapons, but its people and their unwavering will to survive. Harris began mapping potential threats across the galaxy, knowing Varric would not vanish entirely. He coordinated with defectors and liberated systems to create early warning networks, rapid response fleets, and hidden bases. Humans used the lessons learned from past battles: unpredictability, cunning, speed, and relentless determination to prepare for a future where Varric might strike again. Each plan, each patrol, each sensor array was a silent promise that Earth would never fall again, and that humanity would not merely survive but thrive. As months passed, the galaxy slowly shifted. The remnants of Varric's empire weakened further under rebellion and defection. Worlds that once feared the Council now declared independence or allied openly with humans. This restructuring was chaotic, violent at times, yet also filled with hope. Humanity acted as mediator, protector, and beacon, offering support and guidance while defending its own territories. The legend of humans spread across alien civilizations. Stories of the blue planet that refused to break, fleets that could not be destroyed, and soldiers who fought as if the universe itself depended on them became the whispers of the galaxy. Yet in the shadows, Varric continued to move, quietly rebuilding, quietly plotting. He sent envoys to distant civilizations, offering alliances of convenience, technology, and power to gather forces, and perhaps to exact revenge one day. Though humanity did not yet know when the shadow would return, its leaders did not act in fear. They acted in vigilance, preparing fleets, training soldiers, and strengthening colonies every day, ensuring that when Varric or any other threat arose, Earth would not merely survive but would stand as a fortress no enemy could overcome. Finally, on Earth, President Miller addressed the world once more, the cameras broadcasting to every colony, every allied world, every liberated system. He said, "We survived their greatest armada, We defended our home and we freed those who suffered under tyranny. Yet our work is not done. We will remain vigilant, prepared and united for the future. Our strength lies not just in our weapons, our fleets or our strategy, but in our courage, our unity, and our refusal to surrender. Humanity has shown the galaxy who we are, and the universe will remember the humans who would never be broken. And so the galaxy entered a new era, one where humans were no longer merely a species among many, but a force, a symbol, a warning to anyone who dared declare war against them. They had been tested, they had bled, they had triumphed. And though shadows lingered, humanity stood ready for whatever came next. Their courage had reshaped the cosmos, and their story would be remembered forever.